Hey, what's going on everyone? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to the Steve Rising video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Maru. The Season 2 update finally came out today, as was Maru, meaning that we actually got to try her out a little bit more than we did in the early access. And so today we're going to talk about her, and we're basically going to tell you everything you need to know about her. We'll quickly explain her abilities as well as some tips, what are the best weapons that work with her, and lastly we'll talk about the new artifact set, now that the thing is actually fit so we can actually see what it does fully, as well as some of the best artifacts that are going to work on Maru. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you guys do, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel in case you guys aren't already for some more Destiny Rising content. Now first of all, her passive is very simple. Whenever you deal or absorb damage with her abilities, you're going to gain Resonance. Resonance essentially improves her abilities, gives them like extra things to make them better, and whenever you take damage, you will lose some Resonance. And this is actually very easy. Like, your abilities actually give you quite a lot. And also whenever you block damage, which I can't really show you here, but whenever you block damage, just blocking a couple of shots gives you tons of Resonance. So most of the time you are going to have over that 50% threshold, so you're going to have those improved abilities. Her second ability, Annihilation Blast, is essentially her main damage. You shoot a cannonball that deals damage, it knocks the enemies back, and if you're actually close enough to the explosion, it will also knock you back a little bit. It will also suppress enemies, meaning that they deal a little bit less damage, but you're so tanky that usually doesn't really come into play. And the resonance improvement is that whenever you're over 50% resonance, it creates 3 smaller explosions that allow this thing to just do a little bit extra damage. So if we shoot here, you're gonna see that it just does the big explosion, it does some pretty good damage. But now that we're actually over 50% resonance, whenever we fire it, it does a couple of extra explosions, which are gonna do more damage, as well as do a bit of head clear. Now, because you do push the enemy away, sometimes like you saw there, the extra explosions won't hit the actual enemy, but it just kind of depends where you hit them. Now her second signature ability is her defensive ability, and also a way that she can just get a ridiculous, and I really do mean a ridiculous amount of overshield. The ability is just essentially a barrier. Whenever you activate it, if any enemy shoot it, you're going to be getting some resonance, as well as getting a bunch of overshield. And again, just taking a couple hits of damage from an enemy will give you tons and tons of overshield. Now this is the main way that you're essentially going to be just keeping your overshields up. You get so much overshield this way, which works really well into all the new artifacts that you're probably going to be running with Maru. So most of the time you actually have an overshield there, and you're going to be just having a good time. And if you're over 50% resonance, the barrier is also bigger, and it covers your side as well. One of the reasons that this ability works so well as a defensive ability, as well as just building up your resonance and your overshields, is that you can essentially like toggle it on and off. Like you can hold it for a bit, turn it off if nothing is shooting at you, and when you think things are going to shoot you, you can activate it again. So if I use it here, all the way to like halfway, and then deactivate my ability, then it just has to charge from that point on. It doesn't have to like have a whole long cooldown. And this essentially gives you a lot more freedom to be able to just activate it and deactivate it as you see fit. And you also get a bit of acceleration so you can move a little faster with your barrier, so you're not like super slow while holding up the barrier. And then the super is pretty simple. It's just the big cannon. You can do ad clear with it, you can damage with it. It has a bit of tracking to it, also when your resonance is full. And the more resonance you have, as long as you're over 50%, you're going to be doing more damage with it. It's a very simple ability. It's just a big cannon. It's a big cannon that does some pretty good ad clear, and it can put out some decent boss damage. It's not anything crazy, but it's pretty decent. And where it may not look like it, the cannon actually does have a bit of AoE. So if there's multiple enemies like close together, multiple of them will actually be getting hit, as long as it's like within a 3-meter radius. Now the very first relic trait right here essentially just improves the uptime of your Annihilation Blast, because every time that you block damage with your barrier, it's going to be reducing the cooldown of your Annihilation Blast. And this one can actually reduce it by quite a lot and allow you to use that just cannon shot a lot more often. Now, I only have T0 Maru right here, so I haven't really gotten T1 where it gives you 2 cannon shots, but you actually get quite a bit of energy with this. But it is, at the end of the day, going to be dependent of you actually being able to tank damage with your barrier. If you're not really taking any damage, then you're not really going to be reducing your cooldown that much. But if there's a lot of things shooting at you, or if you're doing any type of solo content when basically all the ads are like focusing you, you can definitely really take advantage of this and just constantly fire off some of your cannonballs, doing lots and lots of damage. Now the second relic trait is actually one of the coolest ones. It essentially makes it so your barrier doesn't interrupt reloading. So you fire up your grenade launcher and then you start reloading, you can actually put your barrier up while the reload is happening and then just immediately go back into just firing your weapon. It is very cool, and it essentially makes it so you don't have to take any damage even when you're reloading, because you can constantly just put up your barrier. And it works very well into Maru's playstyle, as was, since you're rocking damage, you're constantly going to be reducing the cooldown of your cannon so you can actually fire a lot more often, while also being safe in the middle of your grenade launcher reloads. And the final relic trait is Final Wish. Whenever you get kills with your super, it can actually give you back a bit of super energy. And this can give you a bit more super usage if you're using the super as an ad clear tool. Since as we get some of these kills, you're going to see that my super kind of jumps a bit. Since we're just killing like regular guys, we don't really get that much. But with some of the majors, you do get a bit more. But it's only up to 50% of your super, so I tend to think that that's not really super noticeable. Even in the early access when it was 100% return or up to 100%, it didn't really seem like that crazy. So I'm not even sure why they nerfed it and made it lower. They should have just kept it 100%, because even then, it wasn't really that strong. And lastly, your weapon mastery is Blast Resonance. When resonance is 50% or higher, the weapon shots will produce 3 split shells that deal void damage to combatants within a 4-meter radius. It essentially gives your grenade launchers use cluster bombs. All of them essentially have like built-in cluster bombs. Whenever you fire, it doesn't even have to be a kill. It just has to be damage. Whenever you fire at something, they use exploding to these mini projectiles that do a bit more damage. And they actually do quite a bit. Like the main explosion here is doing about 14,000 and the little projectiles do 11,000. And that is quite a bit of damage. And the level 4 upgrade for your weapon mastery makes so those split shells increase their damage every time they hit the same target within 1.5 seconds. And this increased damage will be able to stack up to 24%. So that's actually pretty good, because you're usually going to be firing the grenade launcher back to back to back on big enemies, meaning that they're constantly going to be taking a little bit extra damage from those explosions. So that actually is going to add quite a bit of damage, not as an ad clear tool, but more single target damage, and help Maru with single target damage, which is like the thing that she kind of like struggles with. She's very good at ad clear. She might be the queen of ad clear actually in Dusty Rising, but single target damage is where she might just not be as good. Overall, I actually kind of like her playstyle, but she does suffer from just lack of mobility. And since a lot of our endgame currently like deals with mobility and speed running, that's something that's definitely going to be hurting her. Hopefully that won't be the case for long, especially once more activities that are better for like defensive and slow heroes come into the game. Hopefully that will make heroes like Maru, that are very defensive oriented, just be a lot better. Now for the new weapons you want around Maru, I think the Sereno Boost as well as the Drill are probably going to be the best bet. The Drill is actually a very good weapon, especially for a primary weapon. It can actually put in a really good amount of damage, as well as still have some pretty good ad clear thanks to everything that Maru kind of has built into her kit that gives you a lot of ad clear. And the exotic perks that we have on this thing is essentially you get damage over time whenever you direct impact enemies, and then you do more direct impact damage, just help you deal with some of those bigger enemies. That is pretty much what these grenade launchers kind of struggle the most against, some big like strong enemies. So this thing just has straight up a 40% damage increase against them, allowing you to deal with them much easier. So I feel like the Drill's definitely going to be very good, and some of the catalysts can be pretty decent as well. Especially the first catalyst that gives you an explosion after the Drill finishes drilling into an enemy. You essentially get like 2 explosions per shot that do quite a bit of damage. I'm going to show you that right now. So we get the initial explosion. Oh my god, it's kind of hard to see with the Maru effect going on because there's even more explosions. But you have the initial explosion, you have a bit of damage over time, and then you have another big explosion. It actually does a lot of damage, and it can definitely make this weapon into a bit of a threat. And on top of all of that, whenever you get some kills with this weapon, you also get increased reload speed, which is very nice with this weapon. And having just increased reload speed just kind of built into the weapon makes it very nice, and you're able to get tons of shots out there. Now for the other launcher, you're essentially going to be looking for auto loading holster, which is going to auto reload your weapon as well as overflow the weapon if you have the perk upgrade. Auto loading holster really requires that perk upgrade, so really try to get it because it makes it so much better. You can get so many more shots out there that's gonna let you use bigger amounts of burst damage, which is gonna be very nice for Maru. And for the second perk, you're essentially just looking for Poly. This is gonna give you increased blast damage whenever you hit one target or multiple targets. No matter what you're doing, you're always getting increased blast damage. And if you get the perk upgrade, single target blast damage gets increased even more. Again, because Maru has a lot of ad clear but might struggle with single target damage, having something like this is amazing on her. And when you combine this plus auto loading holster, you're gonna have a big overflowed magazine that's gonna be doing tons of damage. So you're actually gonna have quite a bit of burst damage against bosses. And while you might not be someone like Hellhist, you're definitely gonna be put out some pretty decent damage. Now, something that I always forget to talk about is the Light Link companions. If you're wondering what Maru's is that it increases spread weapon damage whenever an overshield is present, which I think is kinda niche, but it could work with some heroes, especially in the future. And her best companions are definitely gonna be Win, as well as Ikora. Ikora just straight up increases your boy damage, and Win's gonna increase your boy damage after using a signature ability. Now for her talents, being a mythic, she obviously has some pretty good talents, and the T1 continues to be a really good upgrade. Now this one increases your charges of Annihilation Blast, so instead of just having one cannonball charge, you're going to be able to have two of them. Meaning that you're going to be able to use them more often, and whenever you're charging up your abilities when blocking damage, you can also do that with the second charge, and it just means that you can actually use it a lot more often. Now, I think this is what I'm going to go for, to be completely honest. I'm probably just going to T1 her, and then just, that's it. That's where I'm going to stop. Now we'll still go over the other talents. The second talent just makes it so your barrier is up a lot more often. As you get hits with your grenade launchers, you're going to be always recharging your barrier. 5% for the primary grenade launcher and 10% for the heavy grenade launcher. So if you have this one, you're never going to have to worry about ever looking at your barrier. Even if you're holding it all the time, you're going to be getting so much of it back that it really won't matter. After that, we have Void Reaction. When resistance is 50% or higher, the number of smaller impact shells is increased. So instead of just having those 4 impact shells, you're going to have 5. This one's definitely not as big of an increase. I think 4 is the one that makes your volley do a bit more damage. It can go up to 100% when resonance is full, and it just gives your super a bit more damage. It is good, but definitely not like a huge increase. 5 increases your Annihilation Blast impact by 20%, which again is just adding a bit more damage, but nothing crazy. And number 6 essentially just increases the efficiency that you get overshield and that you recharge your Annihilation Blast when blocking damage. That's pretty much it. So I wouldn't really recommend that you go for a super high talent tree Maru. I think 1 or 2 are pretty good stopping points. Even at T0 she actually works pretty well. And lastly, let's talk about the Maru artifacts. And just like Hellhist, she pretty much released with a tailor-made artifact set that's gonna work really well with her. And since they were all designed for Maru, they pretty much all have some really good synergy with each other. Now the first one, Undated Blazer. Gaining an overshield will give you damage resistance for 2 seconds, and repeatedly gaining this effect extends the buff duration to a max of 10 seconds. So as long as you just keep getting overshields, you're constantly going to have some damage resistance. And this is going to make you super tanky, because not only are you going to have the overshields, but you're also going to have the constant damage resistance. Now the next one is Siphoning Blazer. Whenever you have an overshield, dealing AoE damage to combatants grants an overshield equal to 20% of the initial damage dealt. This is fantastic. It just gives you free overshields for doing damage. And because as you're doing damage, you're constantly gaining a bit more overshield every time. Whether it's your abilities, whether it's your grenade launcher, your heavy grenade launcher, you're also constantly going to be proccing Undated Blazer. So both of these just work perfectly together. I mean, they were designed to work together, so they just work beautifully together. The one thing about this one is that you do have to initially have an overshield before it actually starts working. But considering that it's so easy to get an overshield with Maru, all you have to do is just tank even a single shot of damage to get an overshield, it's very easy to get this going. And once you get the initial overshield, as long as you're doing damage to your weapons or your abilities, you're constantly going to be getting more shield and constantly refreshing that shield timer, so you always have an overshield on. The third one is actually quite interesting and is Safeguarding Blazer. This one actually increases your max overshield, which is something that I don't think anything else ever did. This is like the very first time we see an effect like this one, meaning that your shields just take more damage because they're just bigger. And whenever you're protected by an overshield, your abilities will deal increased damage. And it's up to a 40% damage, which is pretty similar to something like Inverted Fury. And it's pretty good, it's pretty high. And lastly, we have Bellicose Blazer. This is gonna just straight up increase AoE damage just for equipping the mod. And also whenever we do any sort of AoE damage, we're also gonna get increased movement speed for 3 seconds. This one definitely makes Maru feel a little bit faster, since you're always gonna be proccing that extra movement speed. It's also the only mod that doesn't mention overshields or requires you to have an overshield, kind of like the other ones. All of them kind of worked around overshields, but this one's just about increasing your AoE damage. Overall, I feel like this set is pretty nice. You could just equip this set, just the whole thing, and you would be in a pretty good spot. But if you're not bringing these artifacts, you could also go Unrelenting for these first two. Unrelenting Evolution, plus whichever Unrelenting you like on the first slot, that's gonna work the best for Maru. This is gonna give you a ton of damage assistance because Unrelenting is just crazy in these first 2 slots, and it's just gonna be crazy on Maru as well. Now the Planetismals I think are also a very good choice, especially because just how fast we can spam our abilities, especially our shield, since we can just turn it on and off, just toggle it. We can really abuse things like the Planetismals that require us to use abilities, meaning that every time we use that ability, it's gonna count for things like Courageous Planetisimal. So the Planetismals are also a choice that you can go for, and that can work pretty well with Maru. So Maru actually has quite a lot of choices, but you want to keep it just not complicated. Just the set that she released with, it is gonna be pretty good. Or you want to keep the 3 and 4 because they're just so good, and then change the first 2. That's something you can do as well. And then you could run like Unrelentings over here and just get crazy survivability. Anyways, that's gonna be all for today. Let me know what you guys think about Maru so far, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care everyone, have a great day. Peace.